You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we take you to the home of Bob Bednar, who is running for state representative in the Republican primary. He is running out of Grayslake, where his home is. Look, folks, this looks a little unusual. We're here in the kitchen. This is where all of you sit. When you make your, not necessarily in Bob's kitchen, but in your kitchen, because when you make the important decisions, when you've got to send your kid to college, and when you want to think if you've got enough money to do it, however you do it, finding money here and there, finding scholarships, borrowing, cheating, stealing, whatever you need to do, this is the place where you do it. When it comes the end of the month and you're paying the electric bill and you're paying the mortgage and you're paying all these other bills that you have, and your taxes, and your property taxes, and your sales tax, and then that once a year thing, or sometimes it's more when you pay your income tax. This is what the show is about. Bob Bednar, is that what your race is about, running for state rep in the Republican primary up here in Grayslake?
It's about intelligent control of what's happening in Illinois.
Intelligent control. And what does that mean?
Well,
what are you trying to control, Bob? If you're going to the state house, right? That's where you want to go, right?
The Illinois House.
The Illinois House.
The 62nd District.
Okay. You want to be one of those, I guess it's now
118
state representatives, okay? And there are 67 of them who are Democrats, and there are 51 who are Republicans. You would hope you would be a larger number. You would hope you might even be one of what, like 61 Republicans? Because if you were one of 61 Republicans, what would that mean?
That would mean the Republicans would have a majority in the House.
You would have a little bit more say, a lot more say.
The
right?
Republicans would have a lot more leverage.
If you had a majority, and of course if you had the governor's mansion still in the hands of a Republican, quite a bit, right?
Quite a bit.
You might even, well, let me ask you, okay? You're running for state rep, okay? You're running out of Grayslake. People may wonder, well, where is Grayslake, Bob?
Grayslake is almost in the center of Lake County. We're divided by Route 83, going north and south. Rollins Road is on the northern border. Southern border is right around 120.
This is a nice suburb, right?
It's a great suburb.
Why is it a nice suburb, Bob?
This is the heart of the middle class in Lake County.
Yeah, I could tell as I drove up here, like it was like a mellowness almost came over me. And I mean that as a compliment. I mean, I felt relaxed. I felt good. There are people out there. There are kids out there. And what are they thinking about, Bob? It's a Sunday we're taping here on October 1. What are they thinking about this Sunday, Bob?
Kids are back in school. They've been back in school for about a month. Summer is winding down. We're getting into the fall season. People are putting away their summer things and taking care of maybe one last fun weekend. But this is the time of year when candidates come out, whether they're running for the Illinois House, the Illinois Senate, the governor's mansion, comptroller, treasurer, whatever it is, that we start campaigning. We go out, we get our signatures to get on the ballot. We walk door to door, say hello to neighbors we know, friends we know.
How many signatures do you need, Bob, to get on the ballot?
To get on the ballot, you have to have a minimum of 500 good signatures.
And because your opponents in the Republican primary and the opponents' handlers might want to knock you off the ballot, because then they wouldn't have any opponents, and they would like that, right?
That's a great point.
And because they would do that, are you going to get just 500 signatures?
No,
because why? What would happen if you just got 500 signatures?
If we only put 500 signatures on our petitions and turned it in, undoubtedly there's going to be some people that signed that petition that maybe thought they were registered voters and they weren't. It's possible we get signatures from someone that thinks they're in the district and they're not in the district. Those signatures would not count.
And if you had 497 signatures and they knocked off just three, what does that mean? Are you on the ballot, Bob?
You end up facing the electoral board, and they would make a decision whether you complied with the regulations to be on the ballot or not. And in that case, I think they would throw you off.
Okay. You've got some opponents here, right?
We have some opponents.
Who do you have? Do you know?
We have Denise Rothheimer is running, and I think she's from Ingleside.
Okay.
We have Ken Idstein.
Ken
Hope I'm
Idstein.
saying that right.
I spoke with Ken just this morning. Okay, nice guy. You're a nice guy. We're fair and balanced. We asked Ken if he'd come on the show. He needs, I guess, about a month to think about it. We asked you to come on the show. You said you're fired up and you're ready to go, or something like that, right?
We're ready to go.
You're ready to go. So you got Ken out there. You got Denise out there. You got Bob. Anybody else you know of in the Republican primary?
I did.
It's a Republican primary.
It's the Republican primary. There's another candidate named David Northern that has his petition available online.
Really? Because I thought I heard David was a Democrat. Was he a Democrat like recently?
He's voted in Democrat primaries as recently as just 2016.
Has he been appointed to positions that somebody said, hey, this is like the Democratic position? Was it sheriff's advisory thing or something like that? You haven't heard that?
David is a member of, I think it's called Sheriff Kern's Citizen Advisory
If I asked
Board.
David, if he were here, and I don't know him, I've never talked to him, but I've heard so much about him. If I asked David, what's your bet, if he were being honest, and I said, are you a Democrat or a Republican, at least until this last month or two, you think he'd say yes, I have been a Democrat?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm betting he would, okay? I felt unfair to David, but we hear David was in and then he's out, and the latest is he seems to be not running, right?
Typical campaign stuff. There's all kinds of rumors out there. You never really know who's in.
Sounds
who's
like
out.
he's out because the Governor Rauner, he wants somebody in this race who he thinks can win. Nothing wrong with that. Anybody of any party wants somebody in their party who they think can win. So the governor works sometimes with the Illinois Policy Institute. They say they're separate, but somehow they do it. I'm not saying they would do anything illegal, but they kind of have some synergy there, right? You've heard of the Illinois Policy Institute, right?
I've definitely heard of
them.
them.
And they have an offshoot called the Illinois Employment Project, right? Excuse me, the Illinois Opportunity Project, right?
Right.
And what they're looking to do, I think, Matt Besler, that would be a guy?
Matt's one of the gentlemen involved in that project.
Who are there, some other gentlemen? Mark...
Pat Hughes.
Mark Capers.
Mark Capers.
They're trying
Good guys. Good Republicans.
I love everybody, okay? I have no enemies in this world. Well, maybe a few people. We'll get to that later. Okay, I got no enemies. I know Matt. He's a good guy. Don't know Mark. No Pat. He's a good guy. Everybody, okay? But they are trying to find Republicans. Well, maybe some people thought they were trying to find Democrats. They're trying to find people who can run in the Republican primary and will win, which will give the Republicans a majority. In that, certainly, the Illinois Policy Institute, the Illinois Employment Opportunity Project, the Illinois Opportunity Project, and Governor Rauner are there in sync. I mean, and you're in sync. All Republicans want to have Republicans who can win the primary and then win the general election.
That's right.
It's safe to say, right?
And
that's a unifying concept.
What they want to do,
okay.
Because the 62nd district is considered what's called a Tier 1 race. We've had two very close races in a row, 2014, 2016. Our candidate, Rod Dubinsky, came very close to unseating the Democrat incumbent. And I believe it was the closest race where a Republican did not take the seat from a Democrat. So that puts a lot of pressure for the Republican Party to put a good candidate here. And you have different elements of the party looking for that right candidate. So we're going to have a primary to figure that out.
Okay. And what's the biggest issue in the primary?
Biggest issue, I think, right now is finances and the financial condition of the state.
We're sitting here in your kitchen, right?
In my kitchen.
We're here in Grayslake. You've lived here for, what, a few years?
We've been here in this home for a little bit over a year. We were previously in another home for 4 years.
You feel like you're a part of the community.
I love this community.
This is about 40% or so of the 62nd district in terms of Republican
It's probably
primary
a pretty
voters.
good number. That's right. In terms of Republican
primary voters. We're focusing on that. What are the other areas that make up this 62nd district?
To the west of Grayslake, we've got Haynesville, which is probably another 10% of the district. We have the Round Lake communities, which is Round Lake Heights, Round Lake Park, Round Lake Beach. Most of Round Lake is in the district, and parts of the other communities are in the district. We have...
You know some people in Round Lake?
I know some people in Round Lake.
You know some people in... well, you know a lot of people in Grayslake, right?
I know a lot of people in Grayslake. I know people in each community.
So you like Gurney's in this district?
Gurnee has 10 to 15% of the district.
And what were, as you recall, what are the other ones? Just tick them off quickly.
Third Lake, a little bit of Fox Lake, a piece of Wakanda. There's a little bit of Ingleside. Wildwood is in the district.
Haynesville?
Haynesville is in the district. Haynesville is our border going west of here.
A little bit of Waukegan?
Tiny little piece of Waukegan is actually in the district.
A little bit of Ingleside?
And a little bit of Ingleside.
Kind of rounds it out.
You've got parts of about 10 major communities here.
So these people are sitting around on Sunday, maybe the day that they think about sitting in their kitchen and paying some bills, right? What's on their mind? If I were to go to them, if you were to go to them and you asked them to sign your petition to put you on the ballot, what do you think they'd want to know from you? They're sitting in the kitchen, Bob, and they say, "Come on in, Bob, have a cup of coffee." That might happen to you from time to time, right?
It's already happened a couple of times.
What'd they talk to you about, Bob? What'd they want to know from you? What'd you want to tell them? Because this is, folks, just visualize this. I'm talking to Bob Bednar, okay? But we're in his kitchen. I hope you can see to my left. I hope there's a coffee maker there. I mean, there's a sink, there's a stove. We'll show you that sometime during the show. This is a kitchen. This is the warmest spot in the house. Everybody knows it. This is where you're comfy. This is where you can iron out things. You invite Bob Bednar in. Okay, Bob, you're in this kitchen in R-Grayslake, or maybe in Haynesville, or maybe in Fox Lake. Doesn't matter. It's the 60-second. What are they saying to you?
I ask folks, how do you think Illinois is doing? Where do you think we are as a state? Is our economy getting back on track? Are we doing the right things to create jobs in this community? Are we taking a handle on taxes finally? Or are we just going to continue our tax and spend practices because one party basically is running the table and has been for decades?
And what do they say to you when you ask them that question?
Well, there's a lot of disappointment with what's happening in Illinois. I've had couples tell me they've raised their kids, they've paid their taxes, they've taken care of their property, their place looks real nice. They've raised a couple of kids and put them through college, and now they can't even get jobs here in Illinois. So one has to go move to Houston, Texas, and work for a new company.
Why?
And never lived there before.
Do they tell you why they think they can't get jobs here in Illinois?
It's our job climate.
They're telling you the job climate's not good.
The high costs of workman's comp is preventing companies from expanding and adding a couple of jobs that maybe they could really use.
So we need workers' comp reform if we're going to get people to come here, in their view, and locate their business here and provide jobs. That's one. Right?
And we also need to control the tax base. Right? We just passed a major tax increase, $5 billion additional dollars in income taxes.
Who's going to pay those taxes, Bob?
Well, the bulk of that's going to be paid by individuals, but a lot of it's going to be paid by small corporations. And small
corporations,
business.
what's the thing? Because Bob, you were in accounting a long time ago. Well, not that long. Well, you got an accounting degree. You did get an accounting degree?
My accounting degree came from Lewis University. I commuted there for 4 years.
4-year college.
4-year college.
Did some graduate work?
Did some graduate work. Did about 50% of the MBA program at Lewis.
Okay, so you have a feel for accounting, for corporations paying
Finance,
taxes,
economics,
individuals,
banking.
all of that stuff. And you were in banking or mortgage industry for a long time, right?
I worked as a bank controller for about 10 years right out of college. Went over to the mortgage industry and became a lending officer for Tolman, which was the largest savings and loan in the Midwest. Stayed within that industry right up until just around 2012.
Okay, so you're sitting there talking to them. Sometimes they might ask, what's your background, just like I did. You tell them. You tell them that's what you've done in the past.
Banking and finance.
Do they ever say to you, well, how long did you do that? When did you stop? Did you stop at some point?
I did stop. We had the financial meltdown throughout the United States in 2008.
Okay.
And, from 2008 to 2012, millions of jobs were lost. People lost billions of dollars in equity in their homes and in their businesses.
So you left that industry then?
I left the industry.
Because why? Why'd you leave the industry, Bob?
Well, right now the big banks are controlling the mortgage industry. It's you're working with a lot smaller margins. Okay. There's a lot more rules.
So you had to find, you couldn't continue doing what you were doing and earn a living for your family, is that right?
I was working
because
for
you're married, right?
I am.
You have a daughter, right? At that time, is she living here?
Yes.
Okay. So you're trying to provide for your family.
Yes.
You're not able to do it in the mortgage industry.
Not able to do it in mortgage.
That's like 2012. When did you decide that, Bob?
2010 to 2012. They were really lean years. Okay. And
so
a change had to be made.
So you made the change, and what'd you do, Bob?
Put my resume all over the place, and nobody wants to hire a guy that's 55 years old.
So what'd you do? Did you just quit and say, screw it, I'll go on unemployment? Did you do that, Bob?
I did not do that.
What'd you do, Bob?
I became a professional school bus driver.
Professional school bus driver. Which means, what do you do, Bob?
I drive kids to school every day and take them home and make sure that they're safe on their journey.
People trust you to do that.
There's a lot of
responsibility. They trust you with the most important asset of their life, their kids.
There's no more precious cargo than children.
In a sense, you're involved in education.
I am.
Okay.
I'm the first face.
Do you ever tell people this? Do people say to you, what do you do? And you tell them you drive a bus. What do they say? Oh, you could never be a state rep because you're a bus driver? Is that what they say?
Yeah, we've got some people that think that. And
who would those people be, Bob?
Yeah, it runs across the board.
Okay. Is that what most people think? Is that what most people say to you when you're talking to them?
No.
What do they say?
Why do you want to do this?
And you explain it to them. Okay.
And I say, you know what? We need somebody going down there that's going to talk common sense for a change.
That's going to represent them.
We can't have somebody going down there that represents the special interests, the rich, the people that already have a major stake in things.
Okay. So they need to know.
We need to take care of taxpayers.
And they need to know what your position is. And they say, if we send you down there, if we send you to Springfield, you promise you're going to vote. You're going to try to keep taxes as low as possible and vote against any tax increases. If you can't control the property taxes, but you can have an effect, you can certainly control as a group the income tax on individuals and corporations. You can control the state sales tax. Do you give them your promise that that's what you're going to do?
I do. I tell them it's about being pro-jobs.
Okay, and what's your promise? Give me the promise that you give to them.
We need to do things right now to create taxpayers and not make them move out of the state because they can't afford to stay here.
So what do you do when you're down there as state rep if you get elected?
To be pro-jobs, it means controlling the costs of workman's comp. It means controlling how much corporate income taxes are. Small business is the largest employer in the state of Illinois. We need to put tools there that those businesses can expand and add more employees. That's going to provide an economic boom for Illinois.
So what do you tell them about taxes? What's your promise?
Taxes are way too high. We got to roll this income tax increase back.
Roll it back. Because right now, what's the income tax rate that people are paying after that $5 billion tax increase?
All the way up to 4.95%.
You want it back to 3.75 to 3 because 4 years ago it was 3. You want to take it back to 3?
It was 3. You know, if we could get it back to 3, that'd be great.
Okay.
I don't know if that's even possible the way we have runaway spending going on in Springfield.
Now, your opponent I spoke to this morning, invited him. He said they'll get back to us, whether they'll do the show. They hope we will. One of your opponents, Kenny Idstein. Okay, so we want to be fair to everybody. Ken, come on the show. Okay. He said he was against the tax increase with the caveat that there needed to be offsetting budget changes, but I asked him what those changes were, and he said he couldn't say. He has to do some research. Can you tell me what those changes? You said workman's comp, lower taxes, anything else that comes to mind?
I think there were 5 major reforms that Governor Rauner spoke about when he ran in 2014. Workman's comp, control pension costs, freeze property taxes, basically create a friendlier environment in Illinois.
And you support all those?
I think it's a great agenda.
You're sure now because, and Ken, we're being fair, you weren't sure this morning on October 1. You said you need to do some work, and I understand that. Except you are a candidate, Ken, I think. Your petitions aren't filed, but he is out there telling people he wants to be on the ballot.
I'm sure Ken's walking door to door.
You're doing the same thing.
I am.
If somebody says to you, are you ready to discuss the issues, or do you need a month?
Yeah, let's sit down and talk.
Okay. See, this is what we expect from the lowest position to the highest position. When I talk with Chris Kennedy, who's running for Democrat, not for the Democratic nomination for governor in the state of Illinois, he should be jumping. He should be chomping on the bit. And I asked Chris that, would you do the show? He looked me in the eye, just like I'm looking you in the eye, and he said yes. And then for weeks I'm talking to people and they just don't return my calls. So Chris, I hope you see this. And if not before, maybe by the time you see this, your assistant, Rebecca Evans, will have read my emails of a few weeks ago and gotten back to me. Because I'm talking to you, Chris, in Kenilworth. You can watch us on YouTube if you can't see us there. I'm talking to J.V. Pritzker. Okay? Talking to you. We haven't tried as hard. We'll be there tomorrow asking you. And we'll be talking to Daniel Biss, all Democrats. And Bruce Rauner, we've been talking to you trying for a few years. I don't know what it is. Bob, you're ahead of all four. You're sitting in this chair giving me your positions. These guys want to be the CEO of the state of Illinois, and they are afraid of Jeff Berkowitz.
Jeff, we're out of time in Illinois.
Okay.
We have to start talking about these issues. We have to get them out in front of people. If we wait until a week before the election in March, it's too late.
Okay, so you know where you are in taxes. You're telling people that social issues are important.
I'm a conservative Republican.
You're a conservative.
I'm
Because Ken told me, I hope I got this right, Ken, you come on and you tell people in your own words, but today all I got is what you told me. You're somewhere between moderate and conservative. Are you somewhere in between moderate and conservative?
I'm conservative all the way.
You talk to, and you think you can win the Republican primary that way. Is that right? You think you can?
This may not be the most conservative district, but I think when you sit down and you talk to people about what makes the most sense right now, and the Democrat that's in this district likes to tell people he's almost like a Republican. He's very conservative. He's this, he's that. He's made so many promises. If you asked him what his favorite color is, I think he'd tell you it's plaid.
That's our governor.
Well, that's a lot of our elected officials down in Springfield.
Okay. Well, we'll come. Yeah, and we can't tolerate that. You're saying anymore. We need people who know their positions. Is that right?
Taxpayers are footing the bill right now for everything. We have a spending problem in Illinois, and it's causing huge tax increases that are driving people out of the state. If we don't stop that bleeding, we're not going to control things, and it's going to get away from us.
But on the social issues, you're saying you're a conservative on the economic issues. You're conservative on the social issues.
I'm fiscally conservative. I'm pro-life.
What does that mean to be pro-life?
It means that life is sacred.
Does it mean you would make abortion illegal? If you could.
If I could help make abortion illegal, I would.
Would you allow an exception? Any exceptions? Would you allow an exception for rape?
I'd certainly allow an exception in the case where the life of the mother is at stake.
Life of the mother is at stake. Okay. Any other exceptions?
That would be my exception.
That would be because your opponent says he would allow an exception for rape, allow an exception for incest, and then he said health of the mother, and I said, is that mental or physical? He's not sure.
You know, I've met people within the pro-life movement that were born from an unfortunate rape or incest incident. They're glad they're here.
Okay.
So their mother apparently cared enough about, what was in her womb that she took care of that baby.
We're not, as your host, taking a position here, but one position I am taking, everybody should come here and everywhere else and know their positions and state it, just like Bob did just now, okay? Clearly, unequivocally, and Mr. Idstein, you need to get ready. You're running, you're asking people to sign your petitions. Mr. Kennedy, Chris Kennedy, nephew of JFK, son of RFK, you should make them proud. Make them proud by, they had positions and they articulated, they didn't hide from people. When they said they'd be there on TV, they were there, so come on, join the crowd. Same thing with Rauner. Same thing with Pritzker, same thing with Biss, same thing with Powar, and on and on. And all you state reps running, and all your primaries, and all you state senators, know your positions, tell the people. What do we call that when people take positions and then the voters learn those positions and they vote and they make choices? What do we call it?
It's taking a stand.
And what kind of system does that, though? Is that communism? Is that socialism? What do we have? What do we have here as a reminder to my friends who are watching this show why they should be taking positions?
The Republican Party believes.
Do we call that democracy?
Primaries. We call it democracy.
We call that democracy.
You have a choice of candidates.
Okay. So.
And just to finish on the conservative issues that I believe in.
Like traditional marriage. You believe in one.
Traditional marriage is one man,
what?
one woman.
Okay.
I know that's not the law of the state at this time, which
and you
is
respect
unfortunate.
you respect the law, but if you could change that, you would. Is that right?
I would.
And on guns?
I'm an NRA member. I strongly support the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment is really critical because it protects all the other investments.
Would you support tightening up background checks?
Background checks, we probably need to look at that.
Because sometimes people can buy a gun somehow, some way, without a background check. We're not going to go
into
into
what you end up
detail.
having is straw buyers.
Okay.
It's a problem you had in the mortgage industry years ago, but
and
it
what's a
happens
straw
in
buyer?
everything. Straw buyers where somebody says they're somebody else.
Okay.
And they go out there and they do something fraudulent.
We have laws against it. We have to make sure they're enforced. We have to stop people from getting guns who society decided they don't want to get guns, right? You're in agreement with that?
I am.
Does that mean we should ban assault weapons?
No.
Why not?
Because I think people in their homes and in their businesses have the right to defend themselves.
Even with an assault weapon?
It's a dangerous world out there.
Okay. Okay, because your opponent, Mr. Idstein, says yes, he would support a ban on assault weapons as of October 1. But can you come on, Denise, what's your last name?
Rothheimer.
Denise, you come on. We'll have them all on. Sam Yingling, is that his name? He's the current state rep?
Sam Yingling is
Democrat?
the Democrat
You
in
come
power
on.
here in 62.
This is democracy. This is democracy. Get it? We tell people our views. Bob is told, we'll have Bob on again. You've told him a number of your views. We haven't covered everything. Progressive income tax. A lot of Democrats want that. They say we need to amend the Constitution. We need to allow the state to have higher income tax rates for wealthier people. Everybody knows the wealthy people pay more than the low-income people. He wants the rate to be, the person who wants this wants the rate to be higher. So instead of everybody paying 4.95%, no matter what your income, some may pay 8%, some may pay 10%. You
Jeff,
for that? You want to have a progressive income tax?
Absolutely not. You know, we
Why?
just
Why not?
passed.
Isn't that fair that the rich should pay more?
The rich do pay more.
Shouldn't they pay even more than that?
No.
Why not?
Because we just passed a 32% tax increase on everybody in Illinois. It's $5 billion in new taxes, part of the $36 billion budget that just got passed. And already we're talking about more income taxes after that. The ink isn't even dry on the bill that just got passed. They just keep going and going and going. There's a spending problem in Springfield. We have to put a stop to it. We have to draw a line in the sand and say, no more. You guys need to live within your means. I do it in my household. My neighbors do it in their household. They're paying their bills. They're paying their taxes. They're putting their kids through college. They're trying to live their lives in a way that, keeps their heads above water. The state just doesn't get it.
Okay, folks, as we're talking, we're going to give you a quick look, perhaps, of the house, get an idea what this neighborhood is like, where Bob Bednar lives with his wife, and his daughter's out of the house now, is that right? But she was there. You take a look at that. We're going to give you a look at the kitchen because this is where things are done. This is how democracy works. And we just want you to come back next week and every week to Public Affairs. And you check on us. You make sure we're being fair, tough, and challenging to everybody. We do that. You do your job. Candidates come on. Everybody's on this show. You do all of that. Life will be good. You come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.